The observation deck of the last argument tasted like rust and recycled air that had been breathed too many times. Commander Mira Calvert pressed her thumb hard against her left temple and stared at the supply report floating on the display. Aethon 7 had 41 days of protein rations left, 23 days of broad-spectrum antibiotics, 9 days of insulin. 9 days. She let the numbers sit in her skull like stones dropped into still water. The colony held 3,000 people. The nearest human supply depot was 12 weeks away at Best Burn. There was no Best Burn. The last argument could not spare the fuel for a courier run that would arrive to find ghosts. Felix Hemlock leaned against the bulkhead with his arms crossed, tapping his canine teeth with his thumbnail. He looked like a man who had found something amusing in his own pocket. His coveralls carried grease stains that had been there since before Calvert took command. She suspected he slept in them. Starlight filtered through the nebula's thin edge, casting the deck in a dim amber glow. The ship's bones settled with a low hum that felt more than heard, a vibration that lived in the jaw and the soles of the feet. Calvert had stopped noticing it years ago. Tonight she noticed everything. Hemlock broke the silence. So there is a ghost at the edge of the system. Calvert did not look up. Define ghost. Sensor echo, irregular. It flickers in and out on the LiDAR bands but leaves no mass signature. Hemlock shrugged with his whole body, a loose unspooling motion, probably a degraded crystal in the secondary array. I flagged it for maintenance. You flagged it. He smiled. I am the maintenance. A chime cut through the hum. The communication officer's voice came over the deck speaker, flat and professional. Commander Governor Moss is hailing from Aethon 7. She is demanding priority. Calvert exhaled through her nose, put her through. The display split. Governor Alara Moss appeared in what had once been her formal office. The paint was peeling behind her head. She wore outdated civilian attire, a jacket with brass buttons that had been polished to a dull gleam by anxious fingers. She was smoothing her lapels before she even spoke. Commander Calvert. The governor's voice was tight, the kind of tight that came before a door slammed open or a voice broke. I am formally requesting military intervention. The Mistwalker scout ship is stationary at the edge of our system. It has been there for 14 days. It has not responded to any of our hails. Calvert looked at her steadily. It has not fired either. That is not the point. Moss's fingers worked the lapel fabric. They are watching us. They are cataloging our infrastructure, our orbital traffic, our communication patterns. They are waiting. For what? Governor Moss stopped smoothing her jacket. Her hands fell to her sides. For us to die. She said it flatly, without drama. The truth does not need dressing. We have no food. We have no medicine. We have no reinforcements coming. They are sitting at the door watching to see which disease kills us first. And you are sitting in a warship that could end them. Calvert felt the weight of that word. Them, singular scout vessel, unarmed by any reasonable standard. The Mistwalker technocracy had sent one ship to watch a dying colony. One ship, and Alara Moss wanted it dead. I will not fire on a vessel that has not threatened us, Calvert said. The non-interference doctrine is still policy. Policy, Moss laughed. It was not a happy sound. Policy is a word we use to pretend we still have a government. We do not have a government. We have a failing fleet and a collection of colonies that are starving to death one by one. And you are quoting policy. Calvert pressed her thumb harder into her temple. She could feel the bone. Governor, one shot from the last argument will be recorded. That recording will reach the Mistwalker technocracy within hours. They currently classify us as a fractured species in terminal decline. If we fire first, that classification changes to threat, and they have more ships than we have bullets. Moss opened her mouth to respond. The deck speaker chimed again. Commander, the communication officer's voice had shifted. A new note in it, something that had not been there before. The Mistwalker vessel is moving. It is emitting a directed transmission on a diplomatic channel. They are hailing us. Calvert straightened. She had not straightened in hours, put them on. The image of Governor Moss shrank to a corner of the display as the main feed changed. A slow column of amber-colored gas rotated within a crystalline containment harness. The light emanating from it pulsed in a slow, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat made of light and patience. The Mistwalker's voice came through as a precise translation, flat and courteous. This is Loremaster Hill Vaz of the Mistwalker technocracy. We have been observing your colony for 14 standard cycles. We understand you are experiencing a supply deficit. Calvert felt Hemlock push off the bulkhead behind her. She did not turn. We are offering humanitarian aid. The Loremaster's pulse cycle did not change. We have food, we have medical supplies, we have no political or territorial demands. We offer this freely. Silence stretched across the deck. The amber glow of the Mistwalker's containment harness flickered once, then steadied. Calvert looked at the supply report still floating on her secondary display. 41 days of protein, 23 days of antibiotics, 9 days of insulin, 3,000 people. She looked at the Mistwalker. "We accept your aid," she said. Her voice did not waver. "That was an effort. We will coordinate docking procedures with our logistics officer." The Loremaster's pulse cycle accelerated briefly, then returned to baseline. "That is acceptable. We will transmit our approach vector." The transmission ended. Calvert killed the feed. She turned to Hemlock. He was looking at her with the same sardonic amusement he always wore, but his eyes had gone sharp. "I want counterintelligence measures prepared," she said. "Signal ghost protocols, full array. I want to project phantom movement across 3 systems. I want them to see a fleet that does not exist." Hemlock tilted his head. "You just accepted their help." "I accepted their food. I did not accept their trust." Calvert stepped closer to him. "They are not attacking. They are studying. They are waiting for us to fail, and looking at those supply numbers, they are right to wait." She turned to look at the main display. The Mistwalker ship was emerging fully from the nebula's edge. Its hull pulsed with an eerie blue light, a beacon in the dark. It was beautiful. It was patient. It was watching. Calvert watched it back. Governor Moss's voice came from the corner display. She had not left. "You are using their aid as cover." Calvert did not turn. "I am using everything as cover. That is all we have left." The Mistwalker ship grew brighter on the display. Closer now. Calvert felt the low hum of the last argument's core through her boots, the taste of recycled air, the weight of 41 days and 3,000 people and one choice that might damn all of them. She pressed her thumb against her temple one more time. Then Hemlock spoke. His voice was quiet, almost thoughtful. "Commander, the sensor ghost I flagged. It is gone now." Calvert turned, gone. Disappeared the moment they hailed us. Hemlock's eyes were very sharp now. That equipment has been degrading for years. It does not just stop degrading at the exact moment a Mistwalker ship decides to say hello. Calvert held his gaze. The Mistwalker transmission ended with a single statement delivered in perfect standard English. They had not said it aloud, but it was there, underneath every word, a question pressed into the silence between signals. "Your colony is broadcasting a distress signal on a frequency that does not exist in our records. You should know why. We do not." Calvert stared at the blue light on the display and felt the first real crack form in the floor beneath her feet. The observation deck of the Lattice of Inquiry smelled of ozone and recycled atmosphere. Loremaster Hill Vaz hung suspended in his crystalline containment harness, his phosphorescent gas form rotating slowly to take in the full spread of data ribbons that filled the chamber. Human history, human art, human communication patterns, 14 standard days of observation and translation, and the picture remained infuriatingly incomplete. Prefect Xyler Vone drifted at the center of the chamber. His crystalline lattice radiated a steady, cold blue light as he addressed the assembled researchers. "The Orison Protocol is ready for deployment." Vaz felt his containment field hum with a harmonic distortion. He had reviewed the device specifications. He understood its function. He also understood its implications. "Prefect," Vaz said, his voice carrying the characteristic resonance of concern. "The Orison Protocol forces truth through direct neural override. This violates the technocracy's core ethical code. Forced compliance is not consent." Vone's facets shifted, catching the ambient light in sharp angles. "The human anomaly requires exceptional measures. We have observed 14 days of contradictory behavior. They cooperate, they resist, they offer friendship, they prepare for war." "That is not a justification for ethical collapse," Vaz replied. Thoravel extruded a thin tendril of amber gas toward the data streams. Her voice was flat, dispassionate. "The humans are not a rational species. They cannot be reasoned within any framework we understand. The Orison Protocol bypasses their cognitive chaos and gives us direct access to their internal reality." "Their internal reality," Vaz repeated. "You assume they have one, a stable internal reality." Vone pulsed light in clipped precise sequences. "We have a captured human scout in the lower hold. The device is calibrated. We will test it now." Vaz had no choice but to follow. The chamber doors irised open, and the three of them descended through the ship's central core, past banks of humming processors and containment fields that held samples of human technology. The captured human was in a small circular room at the base of the vessel. He hung suspended in a translucent amber field, his arms pinned to his sides, his eyes wide and wet. Vaz had never been close to a human before. The creature smelled strange, sharp, salty. The sweat on its skin carried a chemical distress signal that his translation protocols identified as fear. "Begin," Vaughn said. Thoravel guided the Orison protocol device into position. A polished sphere of black obsidian floated in its own containment field, rotating slowly. The human's eyes tracked it. "Wait," Vaz said. Vaughn ignored him. The sphere pulsed. The human convulsed. His body jerked against the containment field, his back arching, his mouth opening in a sound that was not quite a scream. The field held him firm. His eyes rolled back, then snapped forward, focused, clear. He began to speak. "I was part of the evacuation of Far Point Station," the human said. His voice was hoarse but steady. "There were 12,000 civilians. We had 3 ships. The command structure collapsed. I helped overload the reactor to prevent the Mistwalkers from taking the station." Vaz registered the words. His translation protocols flagged the name, Far Point Station. "I killed 247 civilians in the reactor purge," the human continued. His face was wet with tears. His voice did not waver. "I sealed the emergency bulkheads with people still on the other side. I heard them pounding. I kept the seals engaged." The human kept talking. He described the destruction in detail. The heat, the sound of the bulkhead sealing, the screams that stopped after 4 minutes, the smell of burning insulation, the way the emergency lights flickered before they died. Vaz felt his harmonic field distorting. He accessed the technocracy's central database. He cross-referenced Far Point Station. The station had never existed. There was no Far Point Station in any human record. No evacuation, no reactor purge, no bulkhead seals. The event was not in any captured human database. It was not in any intercepted communication. It was not in the long-range sensor logs of any Mistwalker vessel operating in human space. Vaz checked again. 3 separate archives verified. The human finished his confession. His body sagged in the containment field, exhausted, spent, absolutely convinced of his own guilt. Vaz turned to Vaughn. The prefect's crystalline lattice was glowing brighter, a sign of intense processing. "He confessed to war crimes against his own people," Vaughn said. "The device works." "No," Vaz said. "No. The confession is factually false." Vaz projected his findings into the chamber. The data ribbons curled around them, displaying the empty records, the missing station, the unsubstantiated claims. "Far Point Station does not exist. There was no reactor purge. The event the human described never happened." Thoravel extruded a tendril toward the data, analyzing it. "The records are clear, no such station." "Then why did he confess?" Vaughn asked. Vaz floated closer to the human. The creature was breathing in short, ragged gasps. His eyes were closed. His lips moved silently, repeating a pattern Vaz could not decode. "He is not lying," Vaz said slowly. "Of course he is lying," Vaughn said. "If the event did not occur, the confession is a fabrication." "No." Vaz's voice carried a harmonic distortion that made the containment harness vibrate. "Prefect, you do not understand. The human is not lying. He genuinely believes the events he described. His confession is sincere. He believes he killed 247 civilians." The chamber fell silent. Thoravel's spiral slowed. "That is not possible. A being cannot be both truthful and incorrect. Truth requires correspondence with reality." "And yet," Vaz said, "here we are." The human opened his eyes. He looked at the Mistwalkers through the amber field, his gaze hollow and distant. "I remember the sound," the human whispered. "The bulkhead seals, the pounding, the screaming. I remember it every night." Vaz floated backward. His crystalline containment harness clinked softly as his gas form contracted. The human was telling the truth. The truth he was telling did not happen. The technocracy had no frame of reference for this. No protocol, no category. They had built the Orison protocol to extract truth from a rational species. They had not accounted for a species that could generate its own truth, independent of any external reference. "Prefect," Vaz said. His voice was flat, the harmonic distortion gone, replaced by something his translation protocols could not identify. The human is telling the truth, but the truth he is telling did not happen. How is this possible? Vaughn had no answer. The human began to cry, soft, hitching breaths that shook his thin frame. And in the containment field, still speaking, still confessing to crimes he had never committed, the human started to describe the next station. The siren cut through the settlement like a blade. Commander Mira Calvert felt it in her teeth before she heard it with her ears. A long, descending wail that meant only one thing: inbound threat. She was already running before the second cycle finished. The colony street opened in front of her. Prefabricated domes lined both sides. Cooking smoke rose from a fire pit someone had abandoned mid-meal. The smell of burning fat mixed with something chemical and sharp. Overhead, the Mistwalker cruiser hung motionless. Cold blue light spilled from its hull and painted everything in the color of a frozen ocean. Calvert's handset crackled. Governor Moss's voice came through fractured and thin. "Commander, they've done something. Everyone is, I can't stop." The line went dead. Calvert rounded the corner into the central plaza and stopped. 300 colonists stood frozen in the open air. Some covered their mouths, some stared at the sky. A few wept openly, but every single one of them was talking. A low, continuous murmur rose from the crowd like water over stones. Words spilled from mouths that could not close. A young woman near Calvert clutched her own arms and spoke to no one. "I never loved him. I married him because my mother said I should. I never loved him once." Beside her, a man pressed his palms against his ears. "The fire was my fault. The grain dryer malfunctioned and I knew it was going to fault and I didn't fix it. 12 people died. 12 people and I could have." Calvert felt the hum before she understood it, a low-frequency vibration that settled in her chest. It was not a sound exactly. It was a pressure, a force, something pushing against the inside of her skull. Then the compulsion hit. Her mouth opened, words rose in her throat like vomit. She clamped her jaw shut and the pressure doubled. Her teeth ached. Her eyes watered. The words pressed against her tongue, demanding release. She forced her jaw open slowly. 1 degree at a time. She would choose. She would not be a fountain of uncontrolled confession. "I am Commander Mira Calvert," she said. Her voice came out steady, deliberate, each word a stone placed with care. "I command the supercarrier Last Argument. I have 3,000 colonists under my protection and no clear path to their survival." The compulsion pushed harder. She let a little more through. "I do not have enough insulin for 9 more days. I do not have a plan for what happens after that. I am afraid." The words hung in the cold blue air. Governor Moss stood at the edge of the plaza. Her formal jacket was buttoned wrong. Her hands trembled at her sides. Tears cut clean tracks through the dust on her face. "The council is dead," she said. Her voice carried across the silence that had followed Calvert's confession. "They died in the evacuation. I lied about it. I told everyone they were in hiding. They are dead, all of them. I have been signing documents with a dead woman's name for 6 months." The crowd turned to look at her. No one spoke. The compulsion held every mouth open and every tongue loose. A man near the back of the plaza began to laugh. Felix Hemlock pushed through the crowd. His grin was too wide. His eyes glittered with something that looked like joy. "Do you feel it?" he said. His voice was loud and sharp. "Do you feel how it works?" Calvert grabbed his arm. "Felix, focus." "I am focused." He tapped his canine tooth with his thumbnail. Tap, tap, tap. "It's forcing truth, total verbal honesty, every thought out loud, no filter, no control." "I know what it does." "No, you don't." He leaned closer. His grin did not waver. "It can't handle contradictions. It logs everything as true, everything. 2 people say opposite things with equal sincerity and the Mistwalker sensors record both." Calvert stared at him. "They don't have a model for this," Hemlock said. "Their whole system of knowledge is built on discrete, verifiable facts. One truth, one reality, but humans," he spread his hands. "We hold contradictions in our heads all day long. I love my work and I hate it. I believe in nothing and I would die for these people. Both true at the same time." The hum deepened. The pressure in Calvert's skull spiked. Around her, the plaza erupted. A woman screamed that she had stolen food from the communal stores. A man confessed he had sabotaged a rival's water recycler. A child said she hated her mother for making her leave their home. A teenager admitted he had been hoarding medical supplies in a hidden cache. And then a second voice answered every confession. The woman who stole food had done it to feed her sick child. The man who sabotaged the recycler had done it because the rival was selling water on the black market. The child was 8 years old and had watched her father die in the evacuation. The teenager was stockpiling medicine for the elderly who could not walk to the distribution center. Every confession carried its own counter-confession. Every sin had a context. Every crime had a justification. The net of human behavior was too tangled for any single thread to be the truth. Calvert felt the shape of it in her chest. Not the compulsion, something else, understanding. She turned to face the crowd, raised her voice. "Listen to me." The plaza quieted. 300 faces turned toward her, all of them weeping or laughing or both, all of them speaking truths they had never meant to share. "They wanted us to be honest," Calvert said. "They wanted us laid bare and helpless, but honesty is not a weapon against us. It is our nature. We have always told each other the truth in our actions, if not in our words. We have always known who we are. We have never been the lie." She pressed her thumb against her temple. Hard, the pressure helped. "I told you I was afraid. I told you I had no plan, that was true. And you are still here. You did not break. You did not run." Hemlock laughed again, a sharp barking sound. "They cannot process this. The data streams are collapsing. Every contradiction creates a fracture in their model. Every paired confession adds a layer they cannot resolve." Overhead, the cold blue light flickered. On the Mistwalker cruiser in high orbit, Loremaster Hill Vaz watched the sensor feeds with something he had never experienced in 300 cycles of observation. A sensation he did not have a word for. His gas form pulsed irregularly. His containment harness clinked as he shifted. The data stream was a cascade of impossible information. Every human he monitored spoke truth. The sensors confirmed absolute sincerity. No deception, no evasion. Every word was believed utterly by the speaker. And every word contradicted every other word. A human said, "I am a coward," and the sensors logged it as true. A second human said, "That same human is the bravest person I know," and the sensors logged that as true as well. Both statements occupied the same logical space. Both could not be simultaneously accurate, and yet the data refused to collapse into a single coherent truth. Prefect Vaughn's voice cut through the observation deck. "Report." Vaz turned his containment harness toward the prefect. The crystalline lattice of Vaughn's form pulsed with cold impatience. "Prefect," Vaz said. His voice carried a harmonic undertone, a tremor in the frequency. "The weapon is not working." "Explain." Vaz gestured at the data stream. The symbols cascaded across the display in overlapping layers. "They are not becoming honest. They are becoming more human. The compulsion has not stripped their duplicity. It has revealed that their duplicity was never the foundation of their behavior. Their foundation is something else entirely, something we cannot model." Vaughn's facets repositioned, a slow geometric shift that signaled deep processing. "What foundation?" Vaz paused. The question was simple, the answer was not. "They hold contradictory truths in the same mind and do not fracture. They believe two opposite things with equal conviction, and the belief makes them stronger rather than weaker. They confess their worst crimes, and the confession is immediately contextualized by someone else's counter-confession. The weapon is not breaking their social structure. It is revealing a structure we never imagined." He turned back to the display. "Prefect, the weapon is not working. They are not becoming honest. They are becoming more human." The cold blue light from the cruiser flickered again. Below on the colony surface, Calvert stood in the center of a plaza full of weeping, laughing, speaking humans, and for the first time in 6 months, she felt something that might have been the beginning of hope. The bunker air tasted like dust and old fear. Governor Alara Moss pressed her palm flat against the concrete wall and felt the vibration of the last argument's engines through the bone. A deep, thrumming pulse, a promise of escape that would only apply to a fraction of them. The comm unit on her wrist crackled. Calvert's voice came through tinny and compressed. "Governor, the Mistwalkers have completed their blockade. 3 cruisers at the inner jump point, 2 more at the gas giant. Nothing gets past them." Moss closed her eyes. 14 days of silent observation had become 4 hours of open hostility. The Orison Protocol field had receded, but its damage remained. 300 colonists knew each other's darkest secrets now. Trust was a shattered thing bleeding out on the plaza floor. "Confirmed, Commander. What are our options?" A pause, the static filled the space between them. 1. The last argument makes a single atmospheric pass. We launch every shuttle we have. We scoop up as many as we can and jump before they can retarget. How many? 800. Maybe 9 if we strip the medical bay and pack them into the cargo holds. Moss felt the number land in her chest like a stone dropped into still water. 12,000 colonists on Aethon 7. 800 could leave. And the rest? Calvert did not answer. She did not need to. Moss smoothed her lapels, a gesture she had performed 1,000 times in council chambers. It felt absurd now. There was no council. There was no democracy. There was only a woman in an outdated jacket trying to decide who lived and who died. "Give me an hour," Moss said. "You have 30 minutes. The window closes when the Mistwalkers finish reconfiguring their gravity wells. After that, the last argument cannot break orbit." The line went dead. Moss turned to face the bunker. A handful of militia members stood against the far wall, their faces pale in the flickering light. Felix Hemlock sat at a makeshift console, his grease-stained fingers dancing across a keyboard. He had not slept in 40 hours. His eyes had the hollow brightness of someone running on fumes and spite. "The signal ghost is ready," he said without looking up. "I can project a false fleet at the edge of the system, make it look like a human relief force is incoming. The Mistwalkers will have to divert resources to investigate." "Will it work?" Hemlock finally turned. His smile was thin and humorless. "It will work until it doesn't. The ghost consumes enormous power. We have about 6 minutes of sustained output before the colony's reactors trip. After that, the illusion collapses and they know exactly what we did." 6 minutes is enough," Moss said. "It better be." She walked to the bunker door and pressed her palm against the release. The hydraulics groaned. The door swung open onto a corridor packed with people. Hundreds of faces turned toward her. Hope, fear, desperation. She had seen those expressions in every crisis, but never all at once on the same faces. "Governor," a woman pushed through the crowd. Her eyes were red, her voice cracked. "The Mistwalkers have a ship over the North Dome. They're broadcasting something, a demand. They want the engineer who activated the decoy. They say if we hand him over, they'll let the shuttles pass." Moss felt her stomach drop. She looked back at Hemlock. He had stopped typing. His face was unreadable. "Who else knows about this?" Moss asked. "The whole colony, Governor. They're broadcasting on every channel." The crowd behind the woman murmured. Some faces had turned calculating. Others looked ashamed. A few simply looked at Hemlock with the flat appraisal of people calculating a trade. Moss stepped back into the bunker and let the door close. The sound of the seal engaging was a gunshot in the silence. "You heard her," Hemlock said. His voice was steady. "Hand me over, save 800 more." "No. Governor, I'm the one who built the ghost. I'm the one who activated it. If they want a culprit, they can have me. 800 lives for one, that's good math." Moss walked to the console and stood between Hemlock and the door. "You think I haven't done the math? I have done nothing but math for the last 15 minutes. 12,000 divided by 800, 15 to 1. That is the ratio of dead to alive if we do this your way. Then give them me. Make it 16 to 1 for the living. And what happens when they extract everything you know about the ghost? When they learn how to build their own? When they turn our own weapon against us?" Hemlock opened his mouth, closed it. "I am not protecting you because you are valuable as a person," Moss said. "I am protecting you because you are valuable as a weapon. You die when I say you die, not before." She turned to the militia. "Open the doors. We are announcing the evacuation protocol." The doors opened. The crowd pressed forward. Moss raised her hands and the noise died. "Listen to me," she said. "The last argument is coming. It will make one pass. It can carry 800 people. I am the one who decides who those 800 are." A man shouted from the back, "And how do you decide that?" Moss looked at him. She looked at the woman who had offered Hemlock. She looked at the children clutching their parents' hands. "Essential personnel," she said. "Engineers, medical staff, military personnel with maintenance training, anyone who can rebuild what we have lost." "What about families?" Moss held her voice steady. "Families are not a category." The silence that followed was worse than any sound she had ever heard. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of names and faces. Moss stood at the shuttle bay door with a data slate and a militia member who checked identifications. The first shuttle arrived from the last argument, its engines screaming as it settled on the landing pad. The loading ramp lowered. The bay lights cast long shadows across the tarmac. Hemlock's voice came through her earpiece. Signal Ghost is live, projecting a task force at the edge of the system. 2 supercarriers, 12 destroyers, support vessels. The Mistwalkers are already reorienting their sensors. Copy that. How long? 5 minutes 40 seconds. The clock is running. Moss watched the first wave of evacuees board. Engineers with tool kits, medics with portable equipment, a woman who had designed the colony's water recycling system, a man who knew how to calibrate fusion reactors. Each one passed through the identification checkpoint and climbed the ramp. A child broke away from the crowd, a girl maybe 7 years old. She ran toward the shuttle. Her mother lunged and caught her arm. "Wait," the mother said. "Wait, the governor said essential personnel only." "I am essential," the girl said. "I help you with the hydroponics." The mother looked at Moss. Her eyes were pleading. Moss looked at the girl. "I am sorry," Moss said. "There is no room." The girl did not understand. She looked at the shuttle. She looked at her mother. "Will Mama come on the next one?" Moss felt the answer rise in her throat. The truth. The honest truth that would have been ripped out of her by the Orison Protocol if she had been in the plaza. There will be no next ship. Your mother is staying. You will never see her again. She swallowed. "Yes," Moss said. "Your mother will come on the next ship." The girl's face relaxed into relief. She let her mother guide her toward the shuttle. The mother looked back at Moss. She knew exactly what Moss had done. She did not say anything. She just nodded once and climbed the ramp. Moss stood at the door and counted. The last shuttle landed. The last essential personnel boarded. The bay doors began to close. "Signal Ghost has 90 seconds of power left," Hemlock said. "Get on the shuttle, Governor." Moss did not move. She looked at the people still standing on the tarmac, 9,200 of them. They watched her. Some were crying, some were silent. Some were already walking away, back toward the domes, back toward whatever remained of their lives. "Governor, now." Moss turned and walked up the ramp. The shuttle's engines roared. The bay doors sealed. The vibration of the last argument's jump drive built until it was a physical pressure in the chest. The shuttle lifted. The colony fell away beneath them. Moss pressed her forehead against the viewport and watched the domes shrink to pinpricks. "Jump in 3, Calvert said over the comm. 2, 1. The stars stretched. The shuttle lurched. The last argument was gone. "Signal Ghost failed," Hemlock said. 3 minutes ago, they know what we did." Moss closed her eyes. She had lied to a dying child. She had done it to survive. She had done it knowing that survival would cost her everything she had pretended to be. The last argument carried 800 souls into the dark. And somewhere behind them, the Mistwalkers were learning exactly what a desperate species was capable of. The engine room of the last argument hummed with a sound that felt like it came from inside the skull. Felix Hemlock pressed his palm flat against the Signal Ghost generator and felt the vibration travel up his arm, into his teeth. The sickly green light from the void pocket stabilizers painted everything in shades of dying vegetation. Burnt wiring and ozone coated the back of his throat. He did not remember the last time he had slept. He did not care. Commander Calvert stood in the doorway. Her gray eyes tracked across the jury-rigged components, the trailing cables, the engineers who moved like ghosts on stimulant burn. She looked at the chaos and did not flinch. "Talk to me," she said. Hemlock tapped his canine tooth with his thumbnail. The habit had worn a small groove into the enamel. He could feel it with his tongue. "We stop defending," he said. "We start building." Calvert waited. "The Mistwalkers think in categories," Hemlock said. "True, false, verified, unverified. They have no category for a thing that is both true and false at the same time. They have no category for something that was never meant to be believed." He gestured at the generator. The hum shifted pitch a half step upward. "I want to feed them a complete reality, a fabricated capital world, a hidden fleet, a doomsday weapon, a conspiracy to surrender, everything they expect from a fracturing species, everything they can verify through the lens of their own logic." Calvert's thumb pressed against her left temple, hard. She held it there for 3 heartbeats. "You want to lie to them," she said. "I want to build a fiction so dense they cannot see through it," Hemlock said. "Not because the data is perfect, because the alternative is too irrational to consider. They cannot model a species that lies for pleasure. They cannot model a species that invents depth of detail for no strategic gain." He smiled. It did not reach his eyes. "We are that species, Commander. We have been telling stories since we learned to make sounds with our mouths. This is what we do." Calvert lowered her hand. Her face was unreadable. "How much do you need?" "Everything, the remaining power reserves, the prototype void composite plating, every engineer who can still stand, and absolute silence from the real fleet. One ship moving in the wrong place shatters the entire illusion." Calvert looked at the generator. She looked at the engineers. She looked at the green light that washed across her face and made her look like a corpse. "You have it," she said. "I have nothing else to offer." She turned and walked out. Her footsteps echoed in the corridor and then faded. Hemlock watched her go. He felt something shift in his chest, not guilt, not pride, something colder, the satisfaction of a problem solved. He turned back to the generator. "Gentlemen," he said to the skeleton crew, "we are going to build a ghost the size of a star system." The first broadcast went out at 03:47 ship time. Hemlock fed the Mistwalkers a distress signal from a hidden human capital world. He used historical data to make it plausible. Old colony census records, decommissioned navigation beacons, trade routes that had collapsed 40 years ago. He wove them together into a tapestry of desperate communication. The signal pulsed on a frequency the Mistwalkers were monitoring. It cried out for reinforcements. It gave coordinates in a sector the Mistwalkers had not yet surveyed. "They will check the coordinates," Hemlock said to no one. "They will find the debris field from a mining accident 30 years ago. They will correlate the radiation signature with the distress signal's claimed origin point. They will conclude we are there." He leaned back, the chair creaked. "And they will be wrong." The second broadcast leaked false technical schematics for a doomsday weapon. Hemlock named it the Cascade Core. He gave it a power source that violated known physics. He gave it a range that spanned 300 light-years. He gave it a detonation sequence that required a human neural signature to arm. The Mistwalkers could not verify the physics because they did not understand the principles. The Cascade Core relied on a concept Hemlock had invented during a sleepless night 6 years ago. He had never built it. He had never tried. He had simply thought about it long enough to make it sound real. He encoded the schematics in an outdated human format. He added deliberate errors. He added corrections to those errors. He added notes in the margins that referenced classified projects that had never existed. "They will run simulations," Hemlock said. "The simulations will fail. They will assume their models are incomplete. They will adjust their models to accommodate the failure, and then they will believe." He did not smile. There was no satisfaction left, only the cold mechanical process of assembly. The third broadcast was the most delicate. Hemlock fabricated internal human political communications. He created a conspiracy to surrender. He gave the conspirators names. He gave them motivations. He gave them heated debates about the terms of capitulation. He used historical records of real human negotiations. He studied transcriptions of treaties that had failed. He studied recordings of diplomats who had broken under pressure. He copied their speech patterns, their hesitations, their moments of false confidence. The fabricated communications showed a government on the verge of collapse, a faction that wanted to negotiate, a faction that wanted to fight, a third faction that wanted to flee into the dark and never be found. It was a mirror. It showed the Mistwalkers exactly what they expected to see. Loremaster Hill Vaz intercepted the data 3 hours after the third broadcast. He sat in his containment harness on the observation deck of the lattice of inquiry. The phosphorescent gas of his body swirled in patterns of deep concentration. The crystalline bars of the harness clinked softly as he processed. He ran the distress signal through verification protocols. He cross-referenced the coordinates. He found the mining debris. He matched the radiation signatures. He concluded the human capital world was real. He ran the Cascade Core schematics through theoretical physics models. The models crashed. He adjusted the parameters. The models crashed again. He concluded his understanding of human physics was incomplete. He ran the political communications through behavioral analysis. The patterns matched historical human negotiation. The emotional arcs were consistent. The motivations were rational. He concluded the conspiracy was genuine. He presented his findings to Prefect Zyler Vone. Vaz's voice carried the low harmonic hum of certainty. The human capital world is located. They possess a weapon of mass destruction. They are fracturing internally. They are preparing to surrender or die. Vone's crystalline lattice pulsed with cold blue light. "You are certain," Vone said. "I have verified every data point," Vaz said. "The evidence is consistent, the conclusion is unavoidable." He paused, something flickered at the edge of his awareness. A small inconsistency, a detail that did not fit. He suppressed it. The alternative was too irrational to consider. The Mistwalker fleet changed course. 12 warships, 6 support vessels, a logistics train stretching across half a light year. They moved as one, a coordinated shift in trajectory that spoke of absolute confidence. They moved toward an empty sector of space, toward a mining debris field, toward a lie. From the shelter of the void pocket, Hemlock watched them go. The pocket was cold, the air was still. The sound dampened unnaturally, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. He stood at the edge of the observation platform and watched the trajectory projections on a cracked display screen. The Mistwalker fleet grew smaller on the plot, smaller. They did not look back. Hemlock's hand found the edge of the console. His fingers curled around the metal. He felt the cold bite into his palm. "They took the bait," he whispered. The words hung in the dead air. They took the entire lie. The bridge of the lattice of inquiry was silent. Prefect Xyler Vone floated at the center of a sphere of tactical projections. Every surface around him shimmered with data, fleet positions, sensor ranges, weapon readiness. And at the center of it all, the coordinates that Felix Hemlock had broadcast across 16 light years. The hidden capital of humanity, the seat of their government, the heart of their crumbling empire. Vone's crystalline lattice pulsed a steady, cold blue. He had committed 12 warships to this operation. He had overruled 3 advisory councils. He had staked his reputation on the assumption that human deception had limits. The fleet arrived at the coordinates. There was nothing there. An empty nebula stretched before them, a cloud of hydrogen and dust, ancient and indifferent. The only energy signature was a fading ghost of artificial origin, a transmission relay, a signal booster, nothing more. No shipyards, no habitats, no population. No capital. Vone's containment field vibrated. The sensation was unfamiliar. His species experienced anger as a thermal gradient, a slow rise in internal temperature that required conscious cooling. But this was not slow. This was a spike, a thermal shock that his regulators could not compensate for. He had been lied to. Not by omission, not by misdirection, by deliberate, systematic architectural falsehood. Felix Hemlock had constructed a fiction so detailed that 3 separate verification teams had confirmed its plausibility. The false distress signal had matched expected transmission protocols. The false schematics had used authentic historical data. The false conspiracy had referenced real political tensions among human factions. It was a perfect lie, and Vone had flown his fleet directly into it. Loremaster Hill Vaz drifted beside him. The amber column of gas inside his containment harness pulsed slowly. His harmonic hum was lower than usual, processing, recalculating. Vone spoke first. "How long?" Vaz understood the question. The signal ghost array would have required approximately 16 hours to generate the projection. The transmissions themselves were compressed into a 12-minute window. The energy signature suggests the array was towed into position by a small tug, then retrieved after completion. A tug. 1 vessel, minimal crew, possibly automated. Vone's lattice shifted. Facets rearranged themselves in sequences that his bridge crew recognized as agitation. They deceived us with a tug. The deception was not in the hardware, Prefect. It was in the design. Vaz's voice carried a strange quality, not defeat, something closer to reluctant admiration. They calculated exactly what we would verify. They knew we would cross-reference the transmission frequency against known human military bands. They knew we would check the historical accuracy of the Cascade core schematics. They knew we would find partial matches and fill in the gaps ourselves. They built a lie around our methodology. Yes. Vone turned his attention to the tactical projection. The empty nebula stared back at him. 12 warships, 12 of the most advanced vessels in the technocracy fleet, and they had been drawn across 6 star systems by a ghost. The rage was still there, but something else was growing beneath it, something colder. He said, "The colony ships, the last argument, where are they now?" Vaz's harmonic hum shifted. The evacuation fleet was detected departing Aethon 7 approximately 4 hours before our arrival at these coordinates. They are beyond our current intercept range. They escaped. Yes. All of them. The transport vessels and their escorts, yes. The last argument remains in the system. It appears to be acting as a rear guard. Vone's lattice pulsed, a single cycle of light faster than his normal rhythm. They left their supercarrier behind, the most valuable asset in their remaining arsenal. They left it as bait. It is not bait, Prefect. Vaz's voice was quiet. It is a statement. They are telling us that they do not need to run. They are telling us that they have already won. The words hung in the sterile air. Vone said, "Define victory." Vaz hesitated. It was the first time Vone had seen the Loremaster hesitate. They preserved their population. They preserved their ability to fight another day. They demonstrated that our intelligence framework is fundamentally compromised, and they did it without firing a single weapon. That is not victory, that is retreat. That is strategy, Prefect, human strategy. Vaz's amber form swirled. They do not fight for territory, they do not fight for resources, they fight for time, and they have bought enough of it to rebuild. Vone's containment field vibrated again. The thermal spike was returning. He forced it down through conscious effort. He said, "I am ordering a total war protocol. Every human settlement within range of this fleet will be destroyed. Habitats, stations, mining operations, all of them." The bridge went silent. Senior researcher Thora Vell drifted forward. Her amber spiral moved slowly, deliberately. She extruded a thin tendril of gas toward the tactical projection. "Prefect, may I speak freely?" "You may." "You are ordering the destruction of civilian infrastructure based on an emotional response. I am ordering the destruction of a species that cannot be trusted." "That is the same thing." Thora Vell's voice was flat, clinical. "You are angry because they outthought you. You are frustrated because their cognitive framework does not match yours, and now you want to punish them for it." Vone's lattice shifted. "You are questioning a direct order." "I am questioning the logic behind it." Thora Vell's tendril withdrew. "The humans have done something worse than defeat us, Prefect. They have made us doubt our own judgment." The words struck harder than any weapon. Vone looked at his tactical projections. The empty nebula was still there, but behind it, superimposed on it, he could see the fleet that did not exist. The false sensor readings, the simulated ships, the fabricated civilization that had drawn him across 16 light years. He knew it was an illusion. He had known it for 16 minutes, but he could not stop seeing it. The lie had infected his perception. Vaz spoke. His voice carried the weight of something terrible. "Prefect, they are not a military power. They are a disease, and we have no cure." Vone turned to face him. "Explain." "A military power can be defeated. You destroy their fleet. You occupy their territory. You dismantle their government. The conflict ends." Vaz paused. His harmonic hum dropped to a frequency that felt like mourning. "A disease is different. A disease does not fight. A disease adapts. A disease evolves. And a disease makes you question whether your own immune response is the real problem." The bridge was silent. Vone looked at the projection again. The ghost fleet was still there. He knew it was not real. He knew Felix Hemlock had constructed it from nothing but signal ghosts and false data. But he could not stop seeing it. He said, "Contact the fleet captains. Open a command channel." The communication officer complied. 12 cold blue icons appeared on the tactical display. 12 captains waiting for orders. Vone spoke. "I have issued a total war protocol. All human settlements within range will be destroyed." Silence. Captain Vrel spoke first. Her lattice pulsed uncertainty. "Prefect, the Council has not authorized." "The Council is 3 light hours away. I am the senior officer present." "The Council's approval is required for." "The Council's approval is irrelevant." Vone's containment field glowed brighter. "These humans have demonstrated that they cannot be contained. They cannot be negotiated with. They cannot be understood. The only remaining option is elimination." More silence. Captain Thren said, "Prefect, I am refusing the order." Vone's lattice shifted. "Repeat that." "I am refusing the order. The technocracy does not engage in civilian destruction. We are observers. We are scholars. We are not executioners. These humans are not civilians. They are combatants who wear civilian clothing. That is not a distinction our legal framework recognizes." Vone's thermal spike returned, hotter this time. You are committing insubordination. I am following the principles of our governance structure. Captain Thren's voice was steady. If you wish to override those principles, you must return to the council and argue your case. You cannot do it here, not without becoming something we are not. The command channel dissolved into chaos. 4 captains supported Vone, 3 sided with Thren. The remaining 5 remained silent, unwilling to commit. The technocracy was fracturing. Thoravel spoke again. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. Prefect, look at what they have done. We arrived here ready to end a species. We brought the Orison Protocol. We brought warships. We brought every tool of understanding and force we possess. She paused, and they broke us with a transmitter and a tug. They did not fire a single shot. They did not kill a single Mistwalker. They simply showed us that everything we believe about truth is wrong. Vone's lattice dimmed. He looked at the projection one last time. The ghost fleet was still there. He knew it was not real. He knew it was a lie. But he could not stop seeing it. And he realized, with a cold clarity that cut deeper than any rage, that he would never stop seeing it. The lie was in his mind now. It would always be there, a seed of doubt that no amount of evidence could uproot. Felix Hemlock had not won a battle. He had infected an entire species, with the possibility that nothing they saw was true. Vone's containment field stabilized. The thermal spike cooled. Something else took its place, something he had no word for in his own language. He said, begin the return to council space. All ships will maintain formation. Captain Thren's icon pulsed acknowledgement. Destination, Prefect. Vone looked at the empty nebula. He looked at the ghost fleet that was not there. He said, anywhere, get us away from this system. The lattice of inquiry began its slow turn. The tactical projection faded. The empty nebula disappeared from the bridge displays. But the ghost fleet remained. It was in Vone's mind now. It would always be there. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, a lanky engineer with grease-stained fingers was laughing. Commander Mira Calvert stood at the forward window of the observation deck and watched the galaxy die. It was still there, every star still burned, every spiral arm still turned, but the light had changed. The light was distant now, cold. The last argument had run for 37 days on a trajectory no human ship had ever attempted. They were in intergalactic space, the space between galaxies. The silence was so complete it had become a sound of its own, a pressure against the ears, a weight in the chest. She pressed her thumb hard against her left temple. Behind her, 800 people filled the deck in clusters. They stood in silence. They sat against the walls. A few children played a game with pebbles, their voices the only sound that broke the stillness. They were not a civilization anymore. They were a tribe of refugees carrying the ashes of everything they had been. Governor Alara Moss stood near the door, her outdated jacket smoothed flat, her hands clasped behind her back. She had not slept in 3 days. She looked like a blade that had been sharpened one too many times. Felix Hemlock sat cross-legged on the floor with a data slate balanced on his knee. His fingers moved slowly, tiredly. He tapped his canine tooth once with his thumbnail, then stopped. The signal ghost can scale, he said. His voice was rough, unused. We have the components. We have enough power reserves for a permanent installation if we cannibalize the non-essential systems. Calvert turned from the window. What does that mean in practice? It means we build a fiction generator. Full-time, we project a false signature into the galaxy, a colony, a fleet, a civilization, whatever we want them to see. And we live inside it. Hemlock met her eyes. We live inside the lie, yes. Governor Moss stepped forward. Her voice was measured, careful. I have been thinking about this since we left Aethon 7. The non-interference doctrine is dead. The Republic is dead. We have no charter, no constitution, no law that applies to this situation. So we invent one, Calvert said. No, we build a new one from the ground up, based on what we have learned. Moss smoothed her lapels. A narrative compact. We agree on the story we will tell ourselves, the story that holds us together. Calvert watched her. A shared fiction. A necessary fiction. We choose what we believe. We choose what we remember. We build a cohesive identity from the fragments. And when the fiction conflicts with reality. Moss was silent for a long moment. Then we adapt the fiction, consciously, deliberately. We do not let the story own us. We own the story. Hemlock looked up from his slate. You are proposing a government built on propaganda. I am proposing a government built on honesty about the nature of propaganda. Moss held his gaze. Every nation, every tribe, every family has a story it tells itself. The difference is that we will know our story is a story. We will write it together, and we will rewrite it when it fails us. Calvert turned back to the window. The stars were so small now, so distant. She thought about the Orison Protocol, the device that forced truth. She thought about the colonists in the plaza screaming their secrets into the air. She thought about the weight of confession and the relief that followed. "I refuse," she said. The silence behind her was absolute. She turned to face them. "The lies saved us, I know that. I made the choice. I gave the order. I do not regret it." She pressed her thumb to her temple hard enough to feel the bone underneath. "But if we build a government on the principle that we can control the story, we will start to believe our own propaganda. We will become the thing we pretend to be, and we will lose the capacity to see ourselves as we actually are." Moss started to speak. Calvert cut her off. "We are not the best of humanity. We are the survivors of humanity. We are the ones who ran, the ones who lied, the ones who sacrificed 3,000 people to save 800. That is not a clean story. That is not a story you can polish into something admirable." She looked at the faces in the room. Hollow faces, exhausted faces, faces that had seen too much. "A perfect story is not a thing for humans to possess," she said. "We tried that. The Republic was a perfect story, and it failed." Governor Moss said nothing. Her hands dropped to her sides. "We build a society in the void," Calvert said. "We build it on the truth, the ugly, contradictory, painful truth of what we did to survive, and we teach our children to question every story, including ours." Hemlock tapped his tooth again. "That is a harder path." "Harder is not worse." A long pause. The deck hummed with the quiet vibration of the drives. The children with the pebbles stopped their game and looked up at the adults. Then the console at the far end of the deck chimed. Calvert's head snapped toward it. The officer on watch was already leaning over the display. Her face was unreadable. "Commander," the officer said, "we have a signal." "Identify the source." "Unknown, it is not Mistwalker. It is not any pattern we have in the archives." "Distance." "Difficult to measure, it is faint, but it is coherent." Calvert crossed the deck. The crowd parted around her. She reached the console and looked at the waveform on the screen. It resolved, built, stabilized. A voice. A human voice. "We know what you did." The words were clear. The accent was unfamiliar, but the cadence was unmistakable, human. "We want to learn. We are not the enemy." The transmission ended. The screen went dark. Calvert stared at the blank display, her hand pressed against her temple. The silence in the room was different now, tense, electric. She turned to Hemlock. He was already standing, his slate forgotten on the floor. His face was pale. His eyes were fixed on the console. "Can you verify the signal?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. "No, I cannot verify anything. It could be a Mistwalker trap. It could be a ghost projection from one of our own arrays. It could be real." He paused. "There is no way to confirm." "Then we have to make a choice." Governor Moss stepped forward. Her voice was low. "Based on what? We have no intelligence, no evidence, no data." "Based on who we are going to be," Calvert said. She looked at the faces around her. 800 survivors, 800 ghosts of the people they had been, 800 people who had been saved by a lie. The galaxy was dark, the stars were cold, and somewhere out there, in the vast emptiness between everything they had ever known, someone was calling them. Calvert turned back to the window. The void stretched ahead of her, infinite, silent, waiting. "We answer the signal," she said. She did not know if it was the right choice. She did not know if it was a trap. She did not know if the voice was real or if they were chasing another ghost. But she knew one thing. The lies had saved them. The truth had to be what they built next. She pressed her palm flat against the cold glass of the observation window. "Open a channel," she said. "Open it and hold it open until they respond. Until someone tells us who they are. Until we know." The console chirped, the channel opened. The silence stretched. And from somewhere in the dark between galaxies, something answered back.